Hello and welcome to the video. Today we're going to continue with the Kill Team starter set, and as you may have seen in some of my other videos, I already have my Plague Marines all painted up and I'm super happy with them. So now it's time to get started on the Space Marine faction. I have to say, painting up Space Marines is one of my favorites. They're just so satisfying when they're all finished. They look so cool. I'm a huge fan of the lore, huge fan of Space Marines. I just like everything about them. I'm going to start off priming this model black because the chapter that I chose was Flesh Tears. And I'm going to start off with doing a base coat of burnt red. For the Flesh Tears, I wanted a red that's a little bit darker than what I would think of for Blood Angels. So I went with this burnt red. I think it was a little bit darker. At the end though, once it dried, I wasn't happy with it. It looked, in my opinion, it looked terrible once it was all dried, but it makes a really nice base coat for what we're going to do next. Cover of the Kill Team shows the Ultramarines. I like Ultramarines, but I just wasn't, there's so many different chapters out there that kind of looked at each one, and I have my favorites, and I like their color schemes better. I like their lore better. So I decided to go with Flesh Tears. I just think that they're a cool chapter. I like their colors. I like the lore for them. Yeah, so I was excited to get started on these guys. One of the great things about these Kill Team models is that you can actually just pull them apart. They kind of snap together, but it makes it so nice for painting that you can just pull them apart, do your painting on them, make sure that you're getting in all of the areas, and then you can just push them back together. So I kind of love that about these miniatures. Now I'm going to come in and do a layer of blood red speed paints. As I said, the burnt red, just once it dried, I just really didn't like it. It was dark, but it wasn't the exact color of red that I was going for. So I decided to put this blood red speed paints on top of it. Now this, I was super happy with the color. It kind of had that dark red look that I was going for, because I picture Flesh Tears as having their armor more of like an old dried blood color, more so than a bright, vibrant red. So I was real happy with how this came out. I'm going to use Mephiston Red here to start line work on these guys. I am certainly not a professional whatsoever. I am not good at doing the lining on the armor for Space Marines that so many people do. I just kind of do my best with it. I hit all of the major areas. You know, I use the side of the brush as much as I can to just put that fine line on the edges, make them stand out a little bit. So, as I said, I don't go overboard with these. They're tabletop quality, and I just want enough that it's going to show, but this is certainly not a professional level here. Now, to make some of the corners and some of the prominent edges stand out a little bit more, I came in with this Demigod Flames. I wanted something to mix in with the Mephiston Red. I didn't use this just straight out the bottle. I kind of mixed it a little bit with the Mephiston. And this, I'm just more or less just picking out some of the prominent edges on the armor and some of the corners here. I'm not relining the entire model. I'm just doing certain little parts here where I want it to kind of stand out. And it really gave it a nice effect. I was really happy with how it just kind of brought some of the sharper edges out a little bit more and brought some attention to them. Now it's time to go over all of the black areas with matte black. And that's one reason too why I picked this chapter. There's only two major colors to it. They're red and they're black. I like that they're red and black because the black just makes it nice and easy to put a layer on. It's going to cover everything up. it really speeds up the process. After I hit all of the armor parts with the black, I'm making sure I'm going in and doing all of the seams where the legs come into the armor and around the waist. I also had forgotten about doing the backpack as I went along because I'd set it aside. So off camera I came back and I put a black coat on the backpack as well. And you can have a lot of fun with these Space Marines. You know, no matter what chapter you pick, there's a lot of references out there for them. Or I know a lot of people suggest just making their own chapters up, which I think is fantastic. But there's so many out there that are already pre-made that I like. I figured, hey, why not just go with one of those? I'm going to use charred brown here just to put down a base coat on the holster. One thing I like about the Space Marine models is that they're not as complicated as the Plague Marine models in this kit. There's not a whole lot of different accessories that you're painting up. The Plague Marines, of course, they had the Nurglings running around, they had staffs, they had all kinds of accessories that you had to worry about. I use Mechanicus Gray to do the line highlighting for the black areas. And again, just as I did with the red, I'm not going overboard with it. I'm not hitting every little single line. I'm just doing the best that I can with this. And luckily on the black, it makes it easy. If you make any mistakes, the black is super easy to do corrections with. So as I say, do what you can. Make sure you're hitting the prominent edges that everybody's going to see. You don't have to go crazy with this. And if you're not good at line highlighting like this, which I'm not, but you could certainly use even just a dry brush over most of it. Dry brush a lighter red or a lighter color on the armor part, and then for the black just use a little bit of gray and just do a very light dry brush on it to pick out the edges. I used lead belcher to pick out the metallic parts, the engine for the chainsword, the teeth on the chainsword. I wanted to pick out the silver parts on the bolter, and then I'm going to come in and there's just a couple little spots on the helmet that needed picked out in silver as well. I used Brain Matter Beige here to pick out the skull for the chest plate, and I also used it to just pick out some of the other lines that I wanted to highlight a little bit more and bring more attention to them, like the chest piece and also a little bit on the helmet. Since the helmet is right on top, everybody's going to be seeing it. I just went in with a little bit of this, and just as I did with the red, I'm not relining the entire model. I'm just picking out the highest edges that I want to bring attention to. I used bronze to come in and pick out all of the golden icons that the Space Marine has. There's also the hilt on the chainsword that I hit with this. But other than that, there's not a whole lot of flashy bits for this guy. I used Shamrock Green here for the eye lenses, and I had forgot to mention previously, when I was using the Brain Matter Beige, I also hit the eye lenses so that whenever I put this green over top, it's going to give it a nice glow effect with the green color over top. It's going to give it like a see-through greenish look. To highlight the holster, I'm using Mournfang Brown. I'm kind of striking the edges of it to give it a sort of scratched leather look. I'm going to do a little bit more highlighting with this Baneblade Brown. And the same thing, I'm just putting this on the edges and I'm kind of doing like a scratching motion on it to make it look like it's worn leather. I'm going to use Earthshade just to wash over the gold parts. And this is just to dull them down a little bit and to add some dark coloring into the recesses. I'll then come in with Nuln Oil and I'll hit all of the silver parts with this. And now that we have our guy all ready to go, I'm going to come in and I purchased these decals on Etsy. I prefer to use the decals. I'm not good enough to freehand the chapter emblems on their shoulder pads and such. So for me, the decals are the easier way to go. For the initial decals, I used Microset. And this, you paint it on the model first, the area where the decal is going to go. You soak your decal in water, and then you can lift it off and put it on there. Put it on the area where you want it to go, and then like use a brush or a Q-tip to very lightly brush on the decal and smooth it down some. But with this decal, this arrow here, I was having a lot of trouble getting it to smooth out. It was giving me some creases and such. So I then went in and used Micro Sol on top of it. This is supposed to soften the decals a little further so that they can form more to irregular surfaces. So I went over and painted on a layer of this Micro Sol on the decal, hoping to soften it up a little bit and get rid of some of the creases. If you're using decals, like this one here gave me a little bit of trouble. I had to really be patient with it. Don't be too aggressive because they'll tear really easy. I just kind of kept messing with it with the brush, putting a little bit of pressure on it. I eventually had to switch to a Q-tip to get some more pressure on it and just gently push on it and pat it where I wanted it to smooth out more. And eventually I actually had to almost let it dry some so that the chemicals had enough time to soften it up, and the decal started to dry out a little bit, and it was much easier then to actually smooth it on then. But just really take your time with them. They give you enough time that, you know, you can move them around some, but you just want to be careful because they do tear very easily. The same thing with the chapter icon or chapter emblem on the other shoulder. I had to really be careful with this one. It kept getting little creases in it and it wouldn't lay flat until I let it set for long enough, and then it smoothed right out. And in my opinion, they look fantastic on here. Now I'm going to come in with Corax White, and I'm going to try to do some battle damage. This is really my first attempt at doing battle damage or any kind of chipping on my Space Marines. I love painting them up, and to me they look so nice when their armor is all new and there's no blemishes on it. But I don't think that's realistic. It would be a very rare occurrence for a Space Marine to actually come into battle with just pristine, shiny new armor on. So that's why I decided to go with a little bit of battle damage. And I think, and I've seen other people say it, a little bit goes a long way. So I tried not to get too crazy with this and go overboard. I just wanted enough that it shows up and it looks like he's been fighting a little bit. And that's why I started off with this white to give some initial damage to the bottle. And of course I'm putting a little bit more on the feet and the legs, and as I go up on the model it's going to get a little bit less and less. And of course with the Flesh Tear I put plenty on the chain sword to show that he's been using it a little bit. After I put down the initial white dots, I came in with a matte black. And this, I'm just kind of hitting the edges of the white. It's almost like you're putting it inside the white damage areas. It gives a look of a little bit deeper damage done to the armor and some more intense scratches on there. I also used it just a little bit to touch up the emblems and the decals that we put on. And I tell you what, this took the decals to a whole new level, in my opinion. It made them look like they were legit painted on there and that had been scratched off due to battle damage. I think it came out fantastic. I used plate mail metal here just to enhance the damage look to them just a little bit. This, I'm being very subtle with it. I'm just touching it in some of the damaged areas, and this actually took it up one more level, and in my opinion it improved it greatly. It was well worth the extra time to do this. So as I said, I tried not to go too overboard with the battle damage, but I'm really happy with how this came out. I'm glad that I decided to do this. In my opinion, it does look a lot better than just Space Marine in pristine, shiny armor. It looks like he's actually been on the ground for a little bit. With the base all done, I'm just going to stick on a little clump of static grass here, and I'm going to call this guy finished. This is the first guy in the squad that I got done. I'm really happy with him. I'm glad I went with the battle damage. I love the flesh tears. I love the emblem on him. I think that this just came out fantastic. And I can't wait to get the rest of the squad all painted up. I hope that you enjoyed watching me paint this guy. I hope that this inspires you to get some of your miniatures painted up. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.